The Book TV bus is traveling the country, visiting bookstores, libraries, festivals, and authors. Here are some of the people and places we visited.
We're here with Tom Chaffin, author of The H.L. Hunley, The Secret Hope of the Confederacy. Mr. Chaffin, what is the H.L. Hunley?
It's a submarine that was deployed by the Confederacy during the Civil War, and it's remembered as the first submarine in world history to sink an enemy ship.
How was it developed?
Well, it had a fairly tortured history. The three partners who developed it, they were all civilians, and they were initially based in New Orleans, and it was a speculative venture. They were motivated more by pecuniary ambition than Southern nationalist motives. They wanted to win these bounties that the Confederate government was offering early in the war to civilians who could sink Union warships, and so they developed their first submarine. They developed in New Orleans, and then on the eve of Admiral Farragut's capture of New Orleans, they had to scuttle their first effort, which was called the Pioneer, and then they fled to Mobile and developed a second one, and that one it was successfully tested, but it ended up being lost without loss of life in Mobile Harbor, and they were very diligent, and they immediately turned toward developing a third one, and that one was which was initially called the Fishboat, later the H.L. Hunley, after Horace Hunley. He was a New Orleans lawyer who was one of the three principal partners. Anyway, that one was eventually transferred to Charleston and deployed by the Confederate Army.
How did it work?
It had a crew of 8 men. It was hand powered. There were 7 men cranking it, and one commander who took care of all the navigation. And it operated with the business end of it was what they called a spar torpedo. It wasn't really what we think of as a torpedo. It was really just a bomb at the end of a long pole, a spar as they called it. And it was, the way it worked is that they would just approach the enemy ship and thrust this spar torpedo into that ship and then back away as quickly as they can.
Now, how does a historian research, learn, and write about such an event in history?
Well, actually, I mean, my last book, Sea of Gray, which is about the Confederate raider Shenandoah, I ended up having an embarrassment of riches there. I had all these shipboard diaries. This was a Confederate raider that's the only Confederate ship to circumnavigate the globe. It was deployed by the Confederacy late in the Civil War to destroy the Union whaling fleet. With that one, these guys had the officers at least had lots of time to write in diaries. In this case, the Hunley, it was trickier to research, and it was also the Hunley, to the extent it's been written about over the years, there have been a lot of mysteries associated with it, and so a lot of lore had been attached to it. So we don't have time right now to do it, but I sort of took the idea that I was going to just take the story back to primary sources. So to answer your question, it's like using a lot of letters and government documents and other primary source documents. It wasn't a real diary that gave me a thread through the whole narrative.
Why is this story not more readily learned about the Civil War?
The Hunley, well, actually, it's sort of ebbed and flowed in public memory. I mean, it was during the 60s. It was actually, or going back even farther. it was. It tends to have been celebrated and then forgotten. For instance, there's a painting that's actually on the jacket of my book, and that was actually exhibited at the 1939 World's Fair in New York. So I don't know. It's hard to explain the fickleness of public memory, but just recently, because it was recovered finally in 2000, the year 2000, in Charleston Harbor, it's been the subject of more serious study. Prior to that, it had been sort of consigned to that great pantheon of gone missing American mysteries, along with Amelia Earhart, Jimmy Hoffa, and Judge Crater.
Now, how did you get to work with the wrecked vessel? I mean, did you get to work with this piece of equipment personally?
That's a good question. One of the things I wanted to do was, as I mentioned, I wanted to take the story back to its primary sources. I tried to do that, but I also I wanted to make sure that I tapped into the archaeological and scientific research that's been done on it since we have it. We've had it since 2000. I mean, just the public in general. Since its recovery, and there have been enormous findings made by the archaeologists and other forensic scientists who have been studying the actual vessel. And I was fortunate enough to have to be able to interview Maria Jacobson, who's the chief archaeologist of the Hunley project at Clemson University. They're the ones who have custody of it now, and they've added a lot to the corpus of our understanding and knowledge of the submarine.
This is Tom Chaffin, author of The H.L. Hunley, The Secret Hope of the Confederacy. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
For more information about the Book TV bus, visit our website at booktv.org/booktvbus.